Welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. My name is Jim Johnson. This is where we turn chaos into wisdom. 25 years ago, in my first chaos report, I wrote, if you begin with failure and learn to evaluate it, you will also learn to succeed. Failure begets knowledge. Out of knowledge, you gain wisdom, and it is with wisdom that you can become truly successful. In this program, we hope to turn chaos into wisdom. This is Wisdom Wednesday, and the show is on philosophy and ethics of cybersecurity. Our special guest and speaker is Thornton May. Thornton is a noted speaker, author, and a futurist. He is also the founder of Digital Value Institute. Joining us on our panel is Harry Scott, a software entrepreneur and angel investor, and Alan Salick. He's a program leader that looks at complex and high-risk troubled transformation projects. So welcome, Thornton.
It's an honor to be with such an august group, and thank you, Jim, for bringing people together virtually, because I think this is actually, how we move forward as a species, as a discipline, as professionals. So getting together and sharing knowledge. And today our topic is basically this concept of the philosophy and ethics of cybersecurity. Now, tragically, those three words, philosophy, ethics, and cybersecurity, rarely show up in the same sentence. All right, and also the other thing, another tragedy is those three words are not very well understood. I mean, they really aren't. So because prior to Aristotle, basically philosophy was everything, right? It was philosophy. It was a study of everything. But then Aristotle ruined it all by creating disciplines, right? So he actually created anthropology and biology and all these other types of things. So what's left is philosophy. So they're actually, and I really do think in these challenging times, people should revisit some of the great works of the Western canon in philosophy. And so a good way of doing that is reading a book by David Edmondson and Nigel Warburton called Philosophy Bites. And it was written in 2010. And what he did was he went to about 150 contemporary modern philosophical practitioners, university people and actually publics, in the public. And he asked them the question, what is philosophy? And one of the guys, Gerald Levinson, basically, who is a university professor at the University of Maryland, basically, this was how he explained philosophy. He said, all right, there was a kid and he was going on his first date. And he was concerned, but he wasn't concerned about the things you'd think he'd be concerned about. He was concerned about what was he going to say in the lulls in the conversation, right? So he went to his dad, because he respected his dad, and he goes, Dad, what do I do? And he says, well, son, whenever there's a lull in the conversation, think the 3 F's. Basically, food, family, and philosophy. Spelled with an F, evidently, but food, family, and philosophy. So he goes on his date, and of course he comes into a dry spot, and he asks his girlfriend, he says, Mary, do you like asparagus? She says, no, I don't. It didn't really help him much. All right? And then he says, okay. Then he goes to the next one, family. He says, Mary, do you have a brother? She says, no, I don't. He goes, I know. And then he goes to philosophy. He goes, Mary, if you had a brother, would he like asparagus? And that is philosophy. Right? So now this practical group of people who are watching this all over the world in many different time zones and in many different time spaces, because we're going to be streaming this for the future. That wasn't very practical. But all right, let me tell you what's really practical. But that's just philosophy basically forces you to think. But actually, but the real thing about philosophy, I mean, the essence of philosophy is that philosophy is the search for and the love of wisdom. Now we have to define wisdom. Wisdom is figuring out what really matters. Wisdom is what really matters. So like philosophy is really focusing on what really matters. And in today's environment, this all brings it into cybersecurity. Cybersecurity really matters. So we could talk for a long time about why, we live in a digital world. Basically, every 207 in the continent, in the United States, every second, 279 devices basically link into the internet, right? Which comes out to, I guess, 11 billion a day link. So like we are becoming more digital, which actually in the cybersecurity speak means that we are expanding our attack surface. All right, and so we are, and just think, where would we be without digital, or where would we be without this connectivity? And that's really the problem we're having, today. So I know, because I have a group of tribal elders with me, let me give you a timeline. So cybersecurity became a real issue, like an issue that basically real serious thinkers started thinking about in 1993. Now, this happened, 1993 is a magic date because this was when my former boss, the true beginning, the person who invented the whole practice of futuring, Al and Heidi Toffler, basically created a book. And I wrote a book called War and Anti-War, Survival in the 21st Century. And what they did was they said cyber was how, basically not tanks, basically, not projectile, but cyber was how we were going to wage war.
We are taking a break from our show to talk about gaining wisdom from our success ladder benchmark. Every software project has risk. This is a bet, just as much as buying a lottery ticket or going to casino. However, do you know your odds? Do you know how to improve your odds? Our success ladder benchmark gives you your odds of success by profiling your project against 50,000 cases in our chaos database. It also gives you hints on where you can improve your odds. There are only few inputs and 6 runs in the benchmark. After each run, the benchmark will indicate your chances of success. The Success Ladder benchmark is part of our membership. You can benchmark as many projects as you want and even play what-if games. You can change this or change that, and each run will tell you your chances of success. To get your Success Ladder benchmark, go to standishgroup.com. Now back to our show.
And so in 1993, the Pentagon sort of said, okay, that is it. So they put that as part of the curriculum. And in fact, what they did was in November of 1993, they basically, the Joint Chiefs of Staff received a memorandum that said, we're going to create a school of information strategy and warfare. And then, and then they said, and they created a 44 weeks, all right, curriculum to study what they needed to get smart about. Now, sadly, in today's event, knowledge experience, we don't have 44 weeks, but basically, so the hypothesis I carry away from this is that cybersecurity has become part of the curriculum of modern existence, which is to say that basically, it's kind of like walking erect, communication, breathing. It's something that you have to do. And yet, not many people have really figured that out, and that's kind of an issue. So the homework exercise for all the people viewing this wonderful experience that we're having, this virtual experience we're having, is do the people in your organization know what they need to know about cybersecurity? And another, a more basic question is do they even know they're supposed to know something about this? Because the tragedy in this space is that so many people think that, well, I have a CIO or I have a chief information security officer, ergo, I have done my bit for cybersecurity. And that's not right. All right. And so if we keep going along this current, basically, celebrating ignorance, if we keep doing this and thinking it's somebody else's job to do cybersecurity, here's the scenario that we're going to bump into. And this is 2025, basically. And the scenario is first, all the cities in the Northern Hemisphere, it's going to be 120 degrees. Basically, your delivery drone every day is going to get hijacked again and again and again, because everything, the supply chain is all cyber, and it's all going to be subject to, if you will, security, breaches. your now semi-sentient car refuses to leave the garage because you have failed to basically provide it with the most recent security patch. So the thing that, so like, while we as humans, while we as carbon-based life forms refuse to acknowledge our responsibility to render ourselves cyber secure, basically the artificial things that will surround our existence, even now, but definitely in 2025. I mean, they're smart and they have an urge for self-preservation. It's not going to drive. Another thing that's going to happen is your daughter's basically, prosthetic arm, cybernetic arm, is going to be held for ransom. So we now have ransomware. You've got ransomware on a nation state basis, and then we have it on an institutional basis, like we saw at Columbia Gas. But in the future, 4 years from now, we're going to have ransomware on a personal basis. So you're going to be held hostage, and then the other thing is that all of your Alexa is going to take care of all the electrical grid, and it's going to shut you off, your building's electricity off, because you're not keeping up with your charges. And the reason you're not keeping up with your charges is because someone has hacked into your cloud account. They're using your cloud assets to mine Bitcoin. So if we do not become more personally involved, each and every one of us, every citizen on this planet, basically, with regards to cybersecurity, it is a dystopic future. So basically, so one of the things we found out is, like, in 1963, basically at the Brooklyn Museum of Art, they had this great exhibit called, it was the most dangerous animal in the world. And you go in there and it was dark and very, and then they turned on the lights. And what it was a mirror, and you looked at yourself. All right. So this is, I think we are the most dangerous animal in the world because we refuse to become non-ignorant, i.e. knowledgeable about cybersecurity. So let's go back 401 years. Go back to, I know that there's some New Englanders in this mix. So go back to 401 years. The Mayflower is just about ready to set foot on the land in Plymouth, at Plymouth Rock, and this guy, William Bradford, is sitting there looking at the deck. And here's the question he had, and I'll paraphrase what he's thinking to himself. What he's thinking to himself here, I've actually got it written down so I remember, is what is to be the fate of civilized man in this prehistoric landscape? Because he was just about ready to go ashore, basically, to this new world. Well, the thing is, we are now ashore in this new digital world, and we should be asking, basically, what will it mean to be secure in 2025? And there are a couple things, there are a couple milestones that we need to talk about, if you will, a couple milestones. Milestone number one is, what conversations are we having, and what conversations should we be having about cybersecurity? That's number one. Then what is the doxa? And this is again, doxa, D-O-X-I-A, which is a Greek philosophical term, which is basically it's popular opinion. So basically, what is popular opinion about cybersecurity? Because this is very important. How the populace, how basically, the worldview of cybersecurity. What's going on then? And then it comes back to the big question is, what is your personal responsibility vis-a-vis cybersecurity? So that's sort of where we're bumping into things. And love to turn it over to my panel of interlocutors to jump in and ask me any questions they might have.
Alan, you want to start?
Sure. Thank you. Very interesting, Thornton. So the question is, how do we get to a call to action today?
Well, I that's a wonderful question, basically, Alan. And so the thing about ethics, in a perfect world, we wouldn't need government and we wouldn't need law because everyone would do the right thing. Because ethics, all right, the definition of ethics, again, it's a branch. So ethics is a subset of philosophy, and ethics is that branch of philosophy that studies and evaluates human conduct. So you're asking that question, how do we get people to behave appropriately vis-a-vis cybersecurity? Well, there is a school of thought that said, well, if we just give them the information, right? If we just give them the information, they will do that. Well, that doesn't work.
Harry?
I think one of the problems is people just can't fathom the attack surfaces, as you talked about. We hear the corporate ones and we can understand them, even if they seem a little arcane or obtuse, sure, casino got broken into through their irrigation system.
Right.
Oh, wow. Well, that's kind of cool, but, didn't affect me. People can't really understand that by downloading the Tide app and allowing, your location to be known, you're actually exposing a lot more than may meet the eye. So until there are some regulations,
Right.
and not necessarily governmental, but who really controls these things, right? The Apple App Store is really the gatekeeper of a lot of this stuff. Until there's more transparency to the individual, right? To the layman.
I agree. And the great thing about cybersecurity is, like, anywhere you look at, we can do a better job, right?
So give me 3 points of ethics that you think we should try to institute as a world organization.
One is, I am responsible, right? Number one. All right. 2 is, you should have an hour every week conversation about cybersecurity. All right. You should have that conversation, right? And 3, you should actually, from that conversation, you should ask 3 questions. All right. What don't I know? Who do I need to meet to get smarter about what I don't know? And what can I do going forward?
Thanks, Thornton. That was very special. And thanks to our panel, Harry Scott and Alan Salick. I want to thank our guest and our panelists for being part of the show. And thank you for being part of the show. I hope we have given you a few minutes of wisdom. We look forward to seeing you next time on Wisdom Wednesday. This is your host, Jim Johnson.